This is part two of the Brasileiro podcast with Big Soccer moderator Mengao 86, who, as the name indicates, is a huge Flamengo fan. What are you? Do you see Flamengo getting better at all, or is this going to be another story like last season?
It's tough to say. I really don't know what to expect from Jorginho. The Santos game, obviously, I thought we actually played pretty well and created a lot of chances. Finishing was still poor, and I really didn't know what to take away from that performance because in the Brazilian Cup performances, really weren't that impressive. We played better than our opponents, but I just wasn't comfortable with the performance, especially going into the league. And then we came out and played a pretty good game, I think, against Santos. Despite Santos' struggles as of late, and then we laid a complete goose egg at home, if you can call it at home, to Ponte Preta. And Ponte Preta, they're a solid side. They had a great Paulistão campaign. I'm not putting them down. Didn't think it was going to be easy, but Flamengo just, looked like a relegation candidate from that performance. Not saying that they are going to be relegated, but that was the type of performance they put in that night. And they improved a bit on the road during the weekend against Atlético Paranaense. And especially the second half. I think the second half was all right. Wasn't perfect by any means. So, I like that Jorginho gave opportunities to some new players like Paulinho, and he tried giving an opportunity to Carlos Eduardo. And to be honest, I think the time for that was when we were playing the Carioca. I don't think it's time to put him out there and see what he has during the league. We need, especially this run. I'm not sure if you've noticed, but Flamengo's first 5 or 6 games here, right before the Confederations Cup, are fairly easy games. We should be getting points in these games, and so far we only have 2 points to show in 3 games.
On the Carlos Eduardo situation, I have to wholeheartedly agree with you that he should have gotten more playing time in the Carioca, and he does look a little bit overweight. And when he came on against Santos, he missed an easy chance. That was just horrible all around. But one thing about Carlos Eduardo, they need him to win, in my opinion. I'm not saying Flamengo needs him to be a world beater, but they could use him in the starting lineup, especially with Jorginho's stubbornness not to play Adrian. That's the one thing I can't understand. I pretty much felt like Dorival got fired just because he's stubborn, and then Jorginho's not even giving Adrian a chance, especially when you were mentioning how good the kid played during training. I know training's training, but at the end of the day, how else is he going to learn a place when he wasn't even thrown out there in the Carioca? I think in the Carioca he only got thrown out there once or twice, and I remember once it was against Madeira in extreme heat for like 15 minutes.
Yeah, he came on late in the second half. I think he had two appearances, which really isn't enough to judge him. I know, he had issues in training, not training very hard, and I could understand why they kept him out because of that. But ever since he had a baby recently, he's been more professional. He's trained harder, and I believe, that's a positive sign because that's something that he hadn't done prior. And I believe he should at least be on the bench. Put him out there, especially when we're struggling to score these past few games. Put him in, and he can create. He's actually scored a free kick already with the pro side in limited opportunities, and that was one of the opportunities we had against Atlético Paranaense. We had Luis Antonio taking a free kick,
Oh.
and I've never seen him taking a free kick before. So, he's got to be somebody that you consider, especially, Carlos Eduardo, he's not in shape. They've been criticizing his fitness. He's been training on his fitness for the past month and a half, and he's still noticeably chubby. and obviously he has confidence problems, from his serious injury that he sustained. I liked him as a player when he was at Grêmio. I liked him when he was at Hoffenheim. Um, but he's not the same player right now, and I'm really not sure what the right approach would be to getting him back to resemble that old form that he demonstrated. I thought the Carioca was the perfect time to get him game minutes under his belt and regain some of that form, but um, the coaches didn't choose to play him, and I think that one of the reasons for that is Flamengo fans are notoriously impatient. You have a bad performance, they're gonna boo you fast. So I don't think the coaches wanted that added pressure. They knew their jobs are, especially Dorival. He knew his job was under the hot seat. Even before the year started, they were thinking about replacing him. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's one of the reasons.
Wasn't Mono rumored to take over for him really early, even before the season started?
Mono was rumored. I don't think they had any talks, but I think what eventually turned them off to Mono was the salary that he would eventually demand, and that was also one of the reasons why they let go Dorival and brought in a cheap option like Jorginho. And they were hoping that Jorginho would repeat some of the success he had 2 years ago with Figueirense, and they also thought Jorginho would be pretty good with the younger players because he helped bring in Wellington Nang when he was at Figueirense on loan, and he had a pretty good season with them.
And I thought, oh, and here's another one of their big signings, Marcelo Moreno. I'm okay. Listen, I'm not canning that signing. I think it was needed because they obviously needed a number nine, and it's better than overpaying for someone from Europe like Roque Santa Cruz. We suggested Skopko really early in the season, but that boat is long gone. That's at probably $20 million now. And do you think Marcelo Moreno is going to help this team? Because I've always been skeptical of him. He's a high volume finisher. That's one of my main problems with him. Although we have seen him make some nice runs since he came on. So would you start Marcelo Moreno and Hernani together, or just would you have to go just one up front by default?
I'm leaning towards just having one. What I like about Moreno is he provides you with little more technical ability, which Hernani really lacks. I mean, like, he'll try to dribble and he'll stumble over his own feet. But just like his nickname indicates, Chicharito Hernani, he can be very opportunistic at times, and that's what made him the top scorer in the Carioca. I'm not sure how that'll translate over to Brazilian league. He did have a couple opportunities last season under Dorival. I believe he scored like 2 or 3 goals. But I think at least for the long haul that Moreno is going to be the first choice.
And this back four is, I still think it's a mess. Although I like Gonzalez, Renato Santos, he's been playing good, but he made a big mistake in the last game. But even besides that, what do you think of Rafinha? A lot of people are excited about him, but is this going to be just a case of a guy showing flashes in the Carioca to disappear in the Brasileirao?
It could be, but I still think that he needs more time, more experiences. I mean, this is his first chance out in the Brasileiro, and I think with more matches he'll get better. What happened to him? He started very hot early on, and I think defenses started to pick up on that. But he was still able to create. He wasn't as brilliant as he was early on. He's still able to create some chances. One of the things that I've been noticing with him as of late is he has great pace, and on some of these runs that he has with the ball, he did this against Santos. He'll go on this great run from deep from midfield, bring it up all the way to the opposing team's box, and he'll trip over the ball and lose the ball. He did that against Santos. he also did that recently. I can't remember who the opponent was. Um, but I've noticed he's been for some reason he's been struggling with his footwork and the ball. But he's still been able to create some chances. I would even consider benching him like Jorginho did last game, but I wouldn't give up on him. I still think he has potential to be a good player. I'd like to see him add some weight. He gets knocked off the ball way too easily. Especially in this past game when he came on as a sub, he was getting knocked off the ball when we got him the ball deep in the opposing end. So that's one thing I'd like to see him do. Set up a specialized program where he puts on a couple pounds so he can stay on his feet. Um, there's plenty of examples of shorter players in the league, like Bernard, also a short player, but he actually has a little meat on his bones to take some of the knocks. And then you have a guy that used to play on Flamengo. He's not even Brazilian right now on Vitória, which is Messi's cousin, Maxi Biancucci. He's also another example of a short player that has a little stock to him. Can take a little abuse from the big center backs.
Last topic on Flamengo. Renato Abreu. I don't even need to phrase a question. Just sound off about him.
Uh, he's almost like an Alves to me. I mean, he frustrates me just as much as Alves. He really doesn't do anything on both ends, especially on the defensive end. I don't see him marking. I don't see him winning balls in the midfield, and I don't even see him pressing. Against Santos, he actually had a decent game,
I
and I
thought it
say
was
that
good. I thought it
I,
was good.
I say that because he was connecting on his passes. That's something that he doesn't do too often. Some nice intermediate passes out to the flanks. That's what he used to be. A player that would connect on his passes during his first stint with Flamengo, which was around 2005 all the way up to 2007. He had better passing, but since he returned, he's just been giving the ball away way too much for my liking, and his free kicks. We already know about his free kicks. Probably one of the best in the league.
I think he's
Um,
the best in the world. Honestly, I have not seen anyone more accurate than him on free kicks. And that free kick he almost had to win last game, it's just something you rarely see.
it is. He has. I'd be interested in knowing what the percentage is of him either scoring a goal or you can include hitting the post, because I would say it's probably close to 50%. It's pretty crazy. I'm amazed by it, but um, even with penalties, he missed that penalty kick last game, which was really awful, and actually it's uncharacteristic. I think he's only missed one penalty in his career. Um, he used to be our official penalty taker during his first stint with us, and he would score from penalties all the time. So I was a little shocked that he missed it, even though deep inside I felt like, oh, he's gonna find a way to screw this up. But
Okay.
another thing other than play is his influence on the locker room, and the younger players really actually look up to him, and I just don't like that because he has a sense of entitlement just because he thinks he's put in the years of service with the club, that he deserves to start and that he shouldn't be subbed off at any time. He needs to realize that at his age, he's lucky he's not on the bench as a veteran player, just like Marcos Assunção is at Santos.
Okay. Now we're talking about people who are going to dwell in the bottom of the league. I think Flamengo's going to be mid-table. I'll let you have your say on that after I say this. Who are your favorites to win this league?
Well, you have some of the obvious favorites. You have Corinthians. Arguably one of the best sides in South America. But right now they're hitting a pretty rough patch. I know they did win against Ponte Preta, but it wasn't really convincing to me. And they tied against Goiás, and they played Botafogo and tied at home, if I'm not mistaken. Um, so they haven't really been playing the football that we were used to seeing from them. I think actually one of the reasons for that is Jorge Henrique playing on that right side. He did a very good job of shutting down the space. Not exactly what you'd call a goal scorer, um, but he filled his role very well in that system. And I do like Romarinho, but he doesn't provide the same work rate as Jorge Henrique. So I think that's one of the reasons. And then you have Danilo, who has really been in poor form, and that's hurt their creation up front.
Which is surprising because when you think of Danilo, you could easily argue that he's been their most consistent player the last year and a half. That's why it's kind of surprising to see him have a slow start.
I would go even as far as saying that he was one of the main reasons they won the Libertadores. He came up big. He was clutch in the big games, and I'm not sure if this bad form is going to linger on or not. I was actually surprised he's been playing at the level that he had been, because he's getting up there in age. But it'll be interesting to see what Corinthians does at that position, because the backup Douglas, he's almost like a younger version of a Danilo that's in bad form. He's very slow, not mobile. He gives you one or two good passes that you're like, wow, where's this player been? But I'm
Douglas
not.
is getting to Daniel Carvalho status now with how out of shape he is, honestly, at this point.
Yeah, so I really don't know what they're gonna do about that position, but I still say they're gonna compete up top. Then you have Galo, who still in the Libertadores, and they've dropped points already on the road to Coritiba, and also at home to São Paulo. And I don't mean to be too cliche, but these early points, as we've seen in the past with teams that have gone deep in Libertadores. Look where Corinthians finished last year. Look where Santos finished when they won. These early points are going to come back to bite them, and I think that's one of the reasons why they're not going to end up winning. But I still think they're going to be at the top half of the table. And then you have São Paulo. I really like their squad. I think they're balanced all the way around. They got some interesting players in the midfield. When Luis Fabiano's on, I think that's when they're at their best. Um, when they've played with Osvaldo, who I really like, and Aloisio, they're really missing that guy that's clinical in front of goal. And I think that's one of the reasons why they didn't win by a bigger margin against Atletico in the knockout stages of the
Exactly,
Libertadores.
because Fabuloso, he started off the season anemic, and he would almost be offsides 5 to 10 times a game, no joke. So you're right, with him scoring goals, that could help. I believe he got off the snide against Vasco. So that's why, with everything you mentioned, why I felt like Sao Paulo can win this league, especially with Johnson. I feel like he's a really different. I'm not saying he's a pure number 10, but he can play that role. He can dish passes and score and be dangerous around the box. I just like the way him and Osvaldo combine. And the defense isn't that bad. I know Lucio cost him the Libertadores pretty much. And I know Rojario's horrible. We have a joke about Rojario every week almost. But I think this defense is solid enough to win a championship.
Yeah, actually, Lucio has been coming on here the last two games in the league. He's put in some good performances. Um, Rogerio, it's going to be a tough call. I don't think Ney Franco is the type of coach that is going to be able to stand up to a club idol like him and pull him out. And I really don't know how that locker room would react to that either. So, that's something that they almost might have to fight against during the season. Um, but one of the positions, if I had to say they had a weakness, is going to be the fullback positions. They don't really have um, a real good right back. They have Douglas, which is kind of so. I really don't rate him that much,
I
and
like him as a right midfielder better.
I would agree with that. They had been playing Paulo Miranda, which is the
Oh,
center back over at right back, and
he's bad anywhere he plays.
yeah, I didn't like that either. So they need to do something about their right back. They have Rodrigo Caio, which is actually played right back in the youth um, team. And I've seen Nate Franco use him more as a midfielder, but I'd be interested to see how he would do over there at right back. Then you go over to left back, and you had Carleto, who was playing pretty well, and he ruptured his ACL, and now he might be out for the rest of the season. So now they're left with a guy that they signed from Sport Recife, Reinaldo, which I don't know too much about. And then they're getting rid of Cortez. Um, I'm not sure if they would rethink that now that Carleto's gone, but both fullback positions, they're going to need to find solutions there.
And are you seeing any dark horses that could make a run at the championship this year?
That's a pretty good question. I actually like what Botafogo is doing. I'd say they're a dark horse. Um, Seedorf, there's really not too much that you can say about Seedorf. The man's still class,
Yeah,
and Lodeiro's really found his football since moving to Botafogo. Um, was underwhelming at Ajax, and made the move back to Brazil, and he's really come on. I think he's starting for Uruguay now, right?
yeah, and the forms even translated to Uruguay, which is surprising. Why I've targeted him for Cartola this year, but missed out like you. I benched him last week also when I should have started him. I remember him playing against Spain with Uruguay and being pretty much the best player on the field. That's how good his form has been since he's been at Botafogo. Uh, but with Botafogo, I always have to question Rafael Marquez. What opinions?
I don't rate him. Right now he's in a hot streak, but I don't know if he's gonna carry on that sort of goal scoring streak throughout the league. I think they need to look at other options. I know they signed at the beginning of the year. They signed the guy that played at São Paulo and also at the U20, Henrique. Not sure what happened to him. Remember that was one of their signings. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah. I remember. Didn't he play? He played. I remember they signed him. I don't even think I've seen him play this year though.
I haven't seen him play either, so that's why I'm wondering what's going on with him. Then you have Vitinho, who I like. Saw some time last week. Um, but he's not really a number 9 in their system. Um, he wouldn't. They'd basically be playing a false 9 if they played him up top. So I don't think that's going to be an option that they use, because the three midfielders that they use behind the striker is Seedorf, Lodeiro, and Felipe Gabriel, who's also actually been playing pretty decent.
Which is surprising because I didn't never rated him, but he's looked really good this season.
Yeah, apparently, he was pretty solid in Japan, and that's where Osvaldo Oliveira coached him in Japan, and they used him in the Carioca actually as a defensive midfielder, and he actually did surprisingly well there. So seems to be a versatile player that they can use, barring any injuries that they have. They can put him in a couple different of midfield spots. So that's one thing to look at. I also like their young defensive midfielder Gabriel. Um, I think he has a future, and that's a guy that should keep an eye on during the course of the year.
Last question of the night: will Vasco be relegated?
I think they escape. I think they're going to be fighting against it throughout the year, but ultimately I don't feel like they'll go down. Um, as far as relegation candidates go, we have, you know, I list Criciúma as one, Portuguesa as one. You would have named Bahia, but something tells me that Cristóvão Borges is going to be able to get that team out, because when he first coached at Vasco, I really didn't appreciate his work initially. I thought, okay, the team is playing because Ricardo Gomes just had a stroke, and they're basically playing off emotions. And then it started to carry on longer and longer, and I was like, wait a minute, maybe he may be doing something. Maybe who I related him to early on was the coach that Flamengo had in their 2009 championship campaign, Andrade. Um, he kind of reminded me of him, and then when they went into the next season and played in the Libertadores, the team was able to carry on the good form that they showed last year, and that's something really hard to do in Brazil. It's very underrated. It's very rare to see teams play well one year and carry that on to the next season. Usually, you'll find them struggling at some point during the year. So I was actually impressed with his work there, and to be honest, I still think, as much as it pains me, I still think that they actually should have moved on and beat Corinthians. I think they were really unfortunate.
I thought they had the better team that year, actually, too.
I mean, you had Diego Souza missing that goal, which really, after that point on, the team kind of felt that they weren't able to bounce back from that missed goal, and then in the final minutes you have Paulinho scoring that goal to put Corinthians ahead.
That
So
is one reason why this league is so crazy. You can be great one year and then be completely poor the next. I have to say thank you to Mengao86 from Big Soccer for joining me, and there will be more features, maybe monthly, from him in upcoming podcasts. Thanks for listening.